Hi, everybody. This is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and this is an edition of a special video blog series that I like to do called Planets in Profile. So I actually began this series last month by talking about the entrance of Venus into Virgo, but I've kind of polished things a little bit, got a spiffy PowerPoint to use this time. And basically what we're going to talk about today is what does it mean that Venus is in Libra, just entered Libra, but the purpose of this series is to look at the meaning of a planet entering one of any sign in the zodiac and talking about its meaning in any given sign. So I'm tracking Venus to sort of begin this series. Venus changes signs somewhat regularly. So we're going to look at Venus in Libra. You can go back into my video blogs to find a talk on Venus and Virgo, the last sign, but I'll probably come back to Venus and Virgo with a little PowerPoint and a more organized structure now that I've sort of figured out what I'm doing. So at any rate, we're going to talk today about Venus and Libra. So the main thing that has to be said about Venus entering Libra is that you have Venus moving into her home sign. So Venus, like every planet save the sun and moon, the traditional 7 planets, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn, all have 2 domiciles or home places in the zodiac. And you have to remember that the zodiac signs were originally thought of as the homes of the gods. The planets were the stars of the gods. And so there's a certain sense in which the gods are abiding in the signs of the different sectors of the zodiac, which is the path of the sun, the ecliptic, broken into 12 perfect 30-degree sections. So when Venus is in the sign of Libra and the sign of Taurus, Venus is said to be in her home sign. So this video will help you understand what it means that Venus has just entered Libra as of August 6th, 2018. But in a more general sense, this is for people who are interested in learning more about, your Venus placement. What is this Venus like? What doesn't she like? What kind of things will you find attractive? What will you find repulsive? And what things does Venus generally represent, and how do those things kind of come through in the sign of Libra? So Venus said to be in her own rulership in Libra. This is Venus's masculine domicile. Every planet, like I said, except for the sun and the moon, who only rule one sign each. Sun rules Leo, moon rules Cancer. Every planet rules 2 signs, a masculine and a feminine. The masculine sign of Libra it's an air sign. It's also called a tropical sign. I'm going to talk a little bit about those things in a minute. It's also said to be the sign of the balance. So a tropical masculine air sign, and the constellation is the balance. So what does it mean, first and foremost, when a planet is in its own sign? It means that it is most able to behave and act like itself, with its own autonomy, its own agency, being most like itself. Think of your own self in your bedroom. I'm thinking there was a famous song by Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys called "In My Room," and there's a place where I can go and tell my secrets to in my room. These famous lyrics, though, are really like spot on in terms of how we all feel about being in our own home place. Like, I always loved that song because there's just such a truth to it. When I was growing up, I lived in the basement of my parents' house, and that space was like my sacred domain. It was where I listened to my music, I wrote my poetry, I played my guitar, I got interested in all different kinds of philosophy and what have you. So it's a sacred place, being in your own space. Well, that's the same way that it is for planets. When Venus is in her own sign, whether it's Taurus or Libra, she is most able to behave like herself. So let's talk about what Venus is like. I'm going to read you something from one of my favorite astrological books. This is a well-loved book in my collection called Cosmos and Psyche by Richard Tarnas. Here's what he says about Venus. Venus, the principle of desire, love, beauty, value, the impulse and capacity to attract and be attracted, to love and be loved, to seek and create beauty and harmony, to engage in social and romantic relations, sensuous pleasure, artistic and aesthetic experience, the principle of Eros and the beautiful, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. So that's a kind of modern description of Venus, but I also want to read you something from classical astrology. This is actually Renaissance / medieval astrology from William Lilly. After the sun succeeds Venus, who is sometimes called Cytherea, Aphrodite, Phosphoros, Vesperugo, Ersinia. Now, I may be mispronouncing some of those old names, but she is of a bright, shining color and is well known amongst the vulgar by the name of the evening star, or Hesperus. And that is when she appears after the sun is set. Common people call her the morning star, the learned Lucifer, when she is seen long before the rising sun. So Venus can be the morning star, the evening star, and she was named differently. And Lily's discussing that right now. Her mean motion is 59 minutes and 8 seconds, which means she moves about 1 degree of the zodiac per day. Every degree of the zodiac is comprised of 60 minutes. And so it's divided sexagesimally, which means that she moves 59 minutes, 8 seconds, about 1 degree of the zodiac per day. So she has Taurus and Libra for her houses. See, in ancient astrology, a house, the signs were called houses because they were the houses or homes of the planets. And today we use the word houses to denote what were originally called places or topoi by the Greek astrologers. So at any rate, she has Taurus and Libra for her houses. She is exalted in Pisces at the 27th degree. She receives detriment in Aries and Scorpio and has her fall in Virgo, also 27th degree. She governs the earthly triplicity by day. The earthly triplicity. If you don't know what triplicity rulers are, we'll talk about that at a different time. But Venus rules the earth signs by day. And she is 2 days stationary before retrogradation, so many days before direction, and does usually continue retrograde 42 days. So we have a Venus retrograde coming up this fall we'll be talking about. Venus retrogrades are an interesting topic. We won't cover that today. But here's more now about Venus. Manner and quality when well placed. So this is Venus when she's sort of behaving at her best, usually she would be at her best when not afflicted by malefic planets like Saturn or Mars or something like that, or exacerbated by something, being in a difficult environment like a difficult house or something like that. She would signify a quiet person, not given to law, quarrel, or wrangling, not vicious, pleasant, neat, and spruce, loving mirth in words and actions, cleanly in apparel, rather drinking much than gluttonous, prone to venery, oft entangled in love matters, zealous in affections, musical, delighting in baths and all honest merry meetings, or masks and stage plays, easy of belief and not given to labor or taking any pains, company keeper, cheerful, nothing mistrustful, a right virtuous man or woman, oft had in some jealousy, yet no cause for it. So Venus acting like Venus, maybe a little excessive, likes fine things, likes to have a good time, is musical, artful, likes theater, likes costume, is not someone to get into unnecessary, viciousness or is clean, well-kept appearance. This is Venus when she's sort of at her best, but maybe gets a little bit jealous or is prone to being overly zealous about what she loves. Okay, so that's Venus. When ill-placed, riotous, expensive, wholly given to looseness and lewd companies of women. You have to remember this is a long time ago. So you could just say maybe a little fast and loose. Nothing regarding reputation, coveting unlawful beds, incestuous, adulterous, fanatical, a mere skipjack of no faith, no repute, no credit, spending means in alehouses, taverns, and amongst scandalous loose people, a lazy companion, nothing careful of the things of this life or any religious, a mere atheist and natural person. So here basically you're describing, now remember William Lilly's coming from sort of Christian England, but you're talking about someone who is sort of lewd, loose, fast, easy, not concerned with anything really but pleasure, maybe going to extremes, etc. So then you think here are some professions, and that's sort of if Venus is not well placed. Professions: musicians, gamesters, linen drapers, painters, jewelers, players, meaning theater, people in the theater, mothers, virgins, women tailors, pipers, etc., etc. So it goes on like this. And then there's sicknesses, there's colors, there's herbs and plants, there's trees, there's beasts, there's birds, there's fishes, there's places, there's metals and minerals, there's stones, wind and weather, like that. There's a lot to say about Venus in traditional astrology, but you get the kind of gist of it. A good Venus is like a nice, beautiful evening at the theater with a fine wine and a good dinner or something like that. A not so nice Venus may be more like hanging out with people who are too loose with their morals or values or their cash, or who are only interested in pleasure and maybe reckless. Set aside all of the sort of moralizing that comes from the maybe some of the Christian scene that Lily was a part of, or the English scene or whatever, but you get the feeling of a good Venus versus a more challenged Venus. Now, it's never black and white, right? It takes a lot of nuance and subtlety to recognize how Venus is situated in a chart. Today, I'd wanted to give you all that description of Venus so you have a sense of kind of what the ballpark that Venus plays in. Now what we can say is, what does Venus act like when she's in one of her home signs, in particular Libra? So first of all, when Venus is in Taurus or Libra, she tends to behave like the well-placed Venus. Noble, kind, courteous, polite, harmonious, beautiful, refined, elegant, sophisticated, classy, beautiful, tasteful, maybe a little excessive, not too much, right? So this is and Venus confirms and it adheres and grows. So Venus in nature is like a warm rain shower in the spring or summer. It is like Venus, like Jupiter, is about growth and making, for example, in nature, it's what makes plants grow. It's what makes things grow together. It's what harmonizes, bonds, unifies, and even brings unlike things together into harmonies. So that's like Venus in Libra. Okay, Venus in Libra can do that more easily. Just if you have Venus in Libra in your chart, then you know that that's sort of the Venus in Libra MO. Now, Libra, however, is a masculine sign. It's an air sign. Air signs are also sometimes considered to be social, intellectual. Sometimes air signs are called humane, which means that there's a kind of refined intellectual quality to Libra and to Venus's placement in Libra. So, for example, to think about Libra in Venus in Libra, you may think of a sophisticated gathering of intellectuals or artistic people or architects or people who have design savvy and they're dressed well and they present themselves well, they speak, they're articulate in their speech, and so forth. So you have a kind of higher, classy, but also sort of ethereal and loftier and even sometimes sort of airier version of Venus. You have Venus in the clouds. You have Venus at the ballroom. You have Venus I live in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of black dress, black suit type of, events here, I guess you could say. Not that you won't see me there, but those are the kinds of environments that Venus in Libra in particular attends to. Venus in Libra is erudition, the loftiness of the mind and the beauty of things that are higher and somewhat more abstract. So if you think about the perfect triangle, the perfect circle, the perfect geometrical shape, the beauty of mathematics, numbers, institutions of higher learning, and the kind of elegance and refined and sophisticated qualities in those places, that's a little bit more like Venus in Libra. Now, of course, that's the air version of Venus in Libra, the airy sort of masculine qualities, masculine tending to be more sort of detached and up high. And the air, of course, goes with that. But also, Venus in Libra is very social, socially defined Venus. So what is Venus attracted to in Libra? All of the things that I just mentioned. Someone if you have Venus in Libra, remember Venus in Libra is telling you about what you're attracted to: erudition, sophistication, class, a certain kind of ease and distance or intelligence combined, grace, but also a sense of idealism or perfection, like straight lines, a little bit more minimalistic, for example, than say Venus in Taurus, which is an earth sign. It's more natural. Venus in Taurus, more likely to be, barefoot in the garden or forest, finding the beauty in nature. Venus in Libra more likely to be found in a modern art museum, like that. So you get a sense. Libra is also a tropical sign, which means the word tropical comes from the word tropos, which means to turn. The season that Libra marks the entrance of the fall or autumn season, which is a turning point, a hard turning point in the solar year. So Libra, also Venus in Libra is more forward. Venus in Libra is a little bit more of an assertive kind of Venus. Venus normally more passive and receptive, harmonizing, brings things together. But Venus in Libra will have a touch more assertiveness to it. So Venus in Libra, the peacemaker, the justice seeker. Remember, Libra is also the sign of the balance, the scales, or the balance of justice. So the other thing is that Venus is inclined toward truth, balance, nobility, harmony, virtue, noble, lofty, idealistic, social values. But of course, like every sign, there is a shadow side. Though Venus in Libra in general can be like herself, depending on the total chart condition, depending on the soul who's got Venus in Libra when they're born, Venus in Libra can also be arrogance, vanity, superficiality, PC politeness rather than authenticity. Venus in Libra can be elitism rather than sophistication. It can be snobbery. It can be, sometimes the positive side of Lady Justice is she's got the blindfold on. So she's one of the beautiful things about Justice. The image of Lady Justice is that she is wise and discerning, and is not swayed by the subjective whims of the emotions or the ego or whatnot. She's supposed to keep her eyes covered in order to be objective, in order to be looking for the truth. So there is a sense of loftiness and distance, objectivity and mental rationality to Venus in Libra. But let's face it, we don't live in a world of perfect triangles and perfect circles and perfect squares. So sometimes the problem with Libra is that it has a hard time making personal choices, personal decisions, where some tipping of the scales is required and some balance some ideal balance is not it's not available to us. It's not realistic. But you walk around the earth, you walk on uneven ground. Life is not sliced into perfect squares and circles everywhere. So it can be hard for Venus and Libra to occupy and kind of come down to earth a little bit. And there can be real vanity and snobbery in that, as well as indecision and a hard time really knowing oneself. So the blindfold of Lady Justice is also about the call to go inward, to remember, this is the autumnal entry point for the sun, the place where the sun starts entering the underworld. Venus in Libra is also karmically about being able to see past superficialities in the world and into the essence of things. Now, on some levels, that might be the abstract, ideal form in a Platonic sense, like the perfect circle or whatever. But it's also about recognizing that which is unconscious. And that which is not apparent to the judging, evaluating whims and preferences and tastes of the mind. So then the ego. So you look around at the world, you say, I like this, I don't like that, da, da, da. And a lot of the times our tastes define our morals and our values, but our tastes are based on selfish desires, and we never take the time to evaluate those. So Venus and Libra also sometimes about the call to become authentic evaluators of experience, authentic, in touch with our inner life, our inner sense of being a being that is personal and distinct and unique, and that uniqueness isn't a cookie cutter thing. So that's something that Venus in Libra can struggle with. But that's every planet, even though they're strong in their own sign, will always have its own inherent archetypal tensions. So that's part of what Venus in Libra is dealing with. So when you want to fall in love, if you have Venus in Libra, you might look for air signs. You might look for people who are sophisticated, interesting, intelligent, communicative, social. They're writers, they're thinkers, they're educated. They like to be stimulated by information and exchanges of ideas and thoughts. You may also need someone who is aware of the need for beauty and balance. Those are very important things for Venus and Libra in your chart. You want people who defer to the other, who recognize the need for harmonizing in environments, but you also want to be very careful about the potential to be attracted to things that are superficial or reflective of your own vanity, in which case, over time, what you attract may not actually fulfill you or put you in touch with your deeper self. So that's what I've got for you guys today. This is planets in profile, Venus and Libra. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and stay tuned. When Venus enters Scorpio, we'll have a lot to talk about because Venus is going to be retrograde in Scorpio this fall of 2018. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.